Hi, it's Jim Owens with Performance Strategies Group. Hope you're having a great day. Wanted to share a few thoughts today about something that plagues most of us as leaders and managers from time to time, and that is how do you motivate individual employees? And that's an important topic for most people, particularly today, as we have an intergenerational workforce that spans from people who are baby boomers, and sometimes even some of the greatest generation folks are still at work for some reason, all the way down to Gen Z. We've got the X's and the Y's and the Z's and the boomers, and I'm part of the OK Boomer crowd. But we have to wonder sometimes if all the things we're hearing about these intergenerational topics are actually true. And the way we learn to motivate people oftentimes is simply by asking them one question: what's important to you? We tend to presume that our own behavioral style and the things that are important to us are the same things that are important to other people. We presume things like benefits and money are the single most important things to people, but that's really not true. And we don't take people as individuals when we find ourselves unexpectedly kind of treating different generational groups or even different types of people of color, gender, or otherwise in different manners. We tend to make assumptions about things that we shouldn't make, and everybody knows what making an assumption can do to you. So by asking people what's important to them, we might uncover a litany of things that we hadn't anticipated. I recently had an experience with a group of people in which I was working with them on a 360 assessment, and one particular individual in the group has a very unique niche within that organization and a very high degree of subject matter expertise. And in the event that individual was not in his or her role, it would create a huge gap for the institution. And I asked this group of people, most of whom had very little idea about what this individual did. It's a very unique niche in the organization. I said, how many of you would like to learn something about that? And in a group of about 18 people, 3 hands went up. And the 3 hands in particular that went up were a surprise to me and I think the people around the table. In this very unique part of the industry where this one individual held the expertise, it might have been easy to presume that these other individuals wouldn't have any interest in that sort of thing. But they wanted to learn more about that person's role and perhaps maybe aspire to it sometime in the future. We might learn from people, as I did from one of my clients today. We were talking about some things with regard to some changes this person was going to make in his or her life. And we talked about what was most important. And flexibility became a very important part of that conversation. It wasn't income. It wasn't working for a big company. It wasn't certainly having a certain amount of responsibility, all of which were important to the person. But in the framework of asking the question, what's most important to you in this situation you find yourself in life-wise from a strategic perspective, flexibility became a very important thing. For other people, it might be something as simply as learning new things, learning new responsibilities, or being included in certain decisions, being able to observe some of the strategic conversations that go on. We worry sometimes about our ability to retain employees, and we think that sending them to training classes is the single best way to train them. Oftentimes we could do much better and be much more effective than simply to have them in the room when we are discussing a topic or an issue which might enlighten them and prepare them for a future role within our organizations. By asking the question, what's important to you, we can get out of our own head with regard to these generational stereotypes, certainly which have some value, and we do that kind of work in our own company. We help people understand some of that. But what we really want to challenge people to do is take these folks as individuals, not as a group of people who we say, well, if you're a millennial and you say, well, okay, the baby boomers have pretty much ruined the world for us, and they think they're in charge, and they just, they've gotten too old to be effective. And we're making generalizations that don't serve us or the organization well. We remind ourselves all the time, I have to remind myself that what's important to my clients may not be the most important thing to me. So when we ask those questions of our clients in terms of delivery times or value propositions, whether it's regarding to the timing or the amount of collaboration that goes into a project that we do with somebody, or a particular instance or issue in the organization that may be sensitive and need to be addressed in some general manner, or to provide a framework for how they address this issue as a whole. We learn an awful lot about our clients, and we build longer standing relationships with them, which is what you're trying to do with every employee in your organization. Now, for some people, it'll be money. And I've had folks that work for me or worked with me in the past that were in sales roles, and money was the single most important thing to that individual. But in all the research, that is not what stands out in regard to employee satisfaction or engagement. The other thing we talk to them about is if you want to motivate them, you have to understand them better. You have to understand not just what is important to them in terms of what their explicit goals are in life, but you have to understand how they process information, how they like to respond to change, what their reticence or inclination towards that might be, as well as the speed at which they work, or whether they are more task or people-oriented. Those kinds of things, as leaders or managers, we often just take for granted that because we're the way we are. At least that's what I did when I was roughly 30 and responsible for running a bank, when I was far too young to really have the emotional preparation, if you will, to be prepared for what was ahead of me. We really have to learn what's important to our people around us to make them more effective and help build a specific and individualized plan for their success. So if you're looking to motivate people, just ask them, what's important to you? And as I close today, I want to say a little bit. You've probably been wondering, I'm sitting here and I have a cup of coffee. You never really see it in my hand here. I'm going to take a sip because I'm a little parched. I know most of you are wondering, what did Jim Owens and George Clooney have in common? I have an espresso machine. This thing has changed my life. I drink way too much coffee as it is, but I just thought that was an interesting comment that might amuse you today. It is the single thing that George Clooney and I have in common. But now you know the answer. I am Jim Owens, and I hope you will forgive me for my strange sense of humor. Whether you laugh or not, I laugh at myself, and it helps me to get through the day. So if you want to know more about the work we do with our clients in strategic planning, executive coaching, the sales and leadership development processes we collaborate with clients on, you can find us on the web at psghsv.com. You can find us on LinkedIn. You can find me on LinkedIn. You can find us on Facebook and Instagram. Send us a message. Let us know if you like this video. If you did, please subscribe to our YouTube channel, or be sure to share this in some way that would be useful to you and your friends. I hope you have a great day. I'm Jim Owens, and we'll talk soon.